This might sound crazy, but not driving your car is actually ruining your car. For years, the used car market has led us to believe that low mileage equals better condition. But that, my friends, is a myth. Purposely keeping the mileage down in your collector car might help to hold its value, but it's gonna open up a whole new can of worms that, trust me, you do not want to deal with. So in this video, I'm gonna share with you what happens when you don't drive your car enough, a few real-world stories about low mileage collector cars that I know of personally, and the biggest thing that you're missing out on by saving your car for the next guy. Imagine, you've got your beautiful collector car sitting here in the garage and you don't want to drive it because you just paid a premium for the fact that it's low mileage. Well, if you wanted to just sit and stare at a parked car, you should have just bought a poster of it. That way you'd not only be saving yourself the cost of the car itself, but also the thousands of dollars in repairs and maintenance that are much more likely to appear on vehicles that aren't driven regularly. Why do people want low mileage cars so badly? Well, I think that it's because deep down inside, we really all wish that they were brand new and we were the first owners of them. So the closer we can get to that, the better. But we've also been brainwashed into believing that low mileage means better condition. Mileage isn't the only thing that wears things out though. It's also time. So what kind of problems can you expect to find in a car that isn't driven regularly? There's a lot of people out there that seem to think if I don't use it, then it won't break or wear out. But that's just not how cars work. Rubber gaskets and seals and O-rings all need to be lubricated by the fluid that is used in each component. When a car sits for a long period of time, then the fluid pools at the bottom of the engine or the trans or whatever, and it allows the seals to dry out. If that happens, prepare for some serious oil leaks. It's simple. Moving parts need to be lubricated often in order to remain healthy. If you don't use your car, somebody else will. No, I don't mean that Jimmy's gonna come and steal your car and take it for a joyride, although I don't know what kind of a neighborhood you live in. I'm talking about the critters. Small rodents love to find cozy, warm little spaces to make nests or set up an Airbnb in. And if they can turn it into a bed and breakfast, then hey, that's even better. A lot of car manufacturers are using soy-based sheathing in their wiring harnesses, and mice find that stuff freaking delicious. Now, wiring issues can be an absolute pain to sort out, so you're either gonna have to drive yourself nuts with a DIY repair, trying to trace down where the issue is, or you're gonna pay a ton in labor to have somebody else sort it out for you. And those short-term tenants are not exactly clean animals either. Do you ever watch those disaster detailing videos here on YouTube? There's a reason why those guys are wearing hazmat suits when they're dealing with cars with rodent poop and mold and stuff in them, and guess what all of those cars have in common? They've been sitting for a long period of time. Now let's talk about tires. Modern tires are not as susceptible to flat spots, so I'm really not that worried about that when it comes to storing my car for the winter time. But when you're talking about a car sitting for years rather than months, it's totally possible to be dealing with flat spots or shifted belts. Also, if the DOT date on the sidewall of your tires matches the age of your car, then chances are they have hardened into hockey pucks and they are no longer safe to drive on, at least not spiritedly. How about the battery? Well, most cars will have a power drain in them that if you give them enough time and let them sit for long enough, it will kill the battery. And if your battery isn't one that's designed to be fully depleted and then charged back up repetitively, it's not gonna be as simple as just using a booster pack like this, which, by the way, you can get a discount on with code GEARHEAD. Letting them drain all the way down and then trying to charge them back up can eventually kill the cells in the battery, and that'll make it so they can't fully charge back up, or they can't hold a charge, or it'll hurt the cold cranking amps or whatever, and the battery is just never the same after it's been fully killed like that. So this can be very easily remedied by just using a battery tender to maintain the charge on your car while it's parked, but also it's kind of more fun to just drive your car, you know? Welcome to Storytime with Tim. Remember that beautiful teal Camaro SS that I did a video on? Well, this is that car now.
We got no windows, do we? No, do we? No.
My dad bought that car earlier this year with only 65,000 K on the clock. It's about as nice of an example of a 4th gen Camaro SS as you're gonna find. But this was actually the worst case scenario for the car itself. For a 28-year-old car to only have 65,000 kilometers on it, it had to have sat for prolonged periods of time. It's just simple math. Then the car was sold to its new owner, my dad, who wants to be able to drive it and enjoy it often. Let me tell you, that poor LT1 engine had more oil leaks than a BP drilling rig in the Gulf of Mexico. That was a good one, eh? The engine and trans had to be pulled out of the car, and actually I've got the invoice right here. It needed a water pump, the rear main seal, they had to reseal the whole engine actually, it needed the OptiSpark had to be replaced, and all the wires and plugs and everything the whole system was all clogged up with oil. It needed a new belt, new thermostat. It's a whole list of stuff that they just went in and had to refresh the whole engine. If you took a look at that car cosmetically, you'd think it's a brand new car. But it's not. Whether it's been driven or not, it's still 28 years old. Now, thanks to the boys at BAC Auto, the Camaro is back home and being driven happily all over again with no issues. Speaking of BAC Auto, I was just talking to the owner, John, the other day, and he was telling me a story about one of his customers with a Ferrari 360. And it only had, like, I think 6,000 kilometers or something on the clock. Super low mileage. Well, the water pump took a crap, and he basically had to have a conversation with the customer that went to the tune of, you gotta start driving this car or it's gonna be in my shop for repairs all the time. Once he started driving it, surprise, surprise, the car was reliable and trouble-free. Heck, my own MR2 here never leaked a drop of oil until it sat for 1 year when I couldn't get car insurance for it. In case you haven't noticed, it's kind of highly modified, but we're good now, it's fine. Ever since then, it'll leave just a tiny little drop of oil on the ground every time I come home from driving it. In comparison, our Tacoma has 340,000 kilometers on it, and the ground underneath is dry as a fart. Car collectors are ruining collector cars. Let me say that again. Car collectors are ruining collector cars. They're treating them like investments and passing them around like they're baseball cards. But these aren't stocks or mutual funds, these are machines, and they're machines that need to be driven and enjoyed. If you're gonna treat a car strictly as an investment, then yeah, low mileage does matter for the value of it, but if that's the case, there are far better investments out there that aren't going to cost you thousands of dollars in maintenance and repairs and insurance and registration. By not driving a car, you're missing out on all of the sounds and the smells and the general emotion that comes from driving a special car. I believe that under the right circumstances, a drive in your favorite car beats any other type of therapy. So don't allow it to become a caged animal. You got to let it get out and stretch its legs every once in a while. That doesn't mean that you have to abuse it or daily drive your low mileage vehicle, but you do have to use it if you want it to continue to be somewhat reliable and usable in the future. If you're not going to drive your car, then basically you can never drive your car. You can't change your mind and go from not driving your car for a really long time and then have a change of heart, wake up one day and go, oh, I think I'm going to drive my car across the country. It's not going to end well for you. The way I see it, parts are either going to break or wear out due to usage, or they're going to deteriorate over time. So if I'm going to have to repair or replace things either way, then I might as well also include the memories and the experience of driving a vehicle the way that it's intended. So how often should you be driving your car to keep it in good condition? Well, I'm not a mechanic. This is just my opinion, but I feel like every week or two is probably a good thing to aim for. You want to drive it for long enough to get it all the way up to operating temperature. You want to give all the rotating components enough time to lubricate themselves, and you want to give the battery a decent charge. So I don't know, like 10, 15 miles minimum. Unfortunately, here in Canada, we have no choice but to park the vehicles that we consider special for the whole winter to avoid rust. So watch this video next if you want to steal my process for storing my MR2.